Generally, there's an obligation not to discriminate, but that freedom must have recourse to other people's rights, right?
Alright, so we have Lawyer Sompa right here in our midst. So we just go straight to the point. Then we have one or two tip chat before we move on to the main discussion. So hi, lawyer, welcome.
Thank you, my brother. How are you?
I'm fine, thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Oh, good to see you too.
Came all the way to invade my house. Huh?
Yes, please.
Welcome.
Yes. For the good,
All right,
people of Ghana.
welcome.
Yeah, so oftentimes our people, do ask us, when are you bringing somebody with a legal background on our show? So we told them today we have a very astute lawyer and a very great personality, of course, and I know they are going to like it. So decided to come all the way here.
Thank you.
Then we have the real conversation. As the name says.
It's good to share the platform, so keep up the good work.
All right, thank you. All right, so if one may ask, who is Sompa?
Um, I'm just a young man who believes in pursuing the better versions of myself and being the best you can every single day.
Okay, that's nice. So on another thing, somebody asked, so doing that good things, perceiving and trying to be who you want to be is basically impact. So with impact, there are so many achievements that comes with. So what are some of them so far?
I guess I practice law, so if that qualifies, maybe. But we're all on the street, making on my own. We all did the street inside. So. The street for life. This is how we shut our lives. So
I see.
yeah,
All right. So lawyer, so from a legal perspective, what is cancel culture?
um, I'm I'm not sure there's a legal perspective to it, except that it's a new thing. Basically to say that people always have a choice in terms of how they use their attention, their money, who they patronize or otherwise. So the real conversation is, does anybody have a choice in terms of whether or not they will make a choice to listen to one person or other? And the answer is absolutely yes. I think the baseline of human rights and the baseline of freedom of expression is that nobody necessarily has the right to curtail somebody's right of expression. In the same way, nobody is entitled to the attention and the money of the other person. So I guess the foundation of counsel is to say, I have audience and I want to listen to you. If it's powerful platform, let's say platforms that have a requirement not to discriminate, then that can become a discrimination conversation. But generally, the baseline of counsel is to say people who have a certain right to choose not to listen would make that choice because you did something, whether political or economic, in the way that they thought did not align with their own politics or otherwise. So it's a choice people make, which is rooted in their free will to say that I will not listen, I will not patronize, I will not engage, we will not allow you to be a part of our platform. And fundamentally, except of course it borders on discrimination when there's an obligation not to discriminate, there would be an element of free choice which everybody has the right to.
Okay, so looking at it from that perspective, so there shouldn't be more or less like a limitation to something, or it should still be in a free form to be asked if it's in general form.
Okay, so if I understand your question to say, is there any limitation to which somebody can be subject to cultural counsel?
Yeah. Yeah.
I yes, as I said, generally there's an obligation not to discriminate. Let's say National Theatre is a public platform. Can National Theatre make a choice to say, for example, they won't allow Ahmed to stage a play here because he's cancelled, or they want, his politics is so averse to the current government in a way that they won't allow him use the platform? I don't think so. But if it pertains to individuals and private persons in the way that it has no element of public life or public use of resources, yes, every public person, in my humble view, has a right to choose who he allows or does not allow. So it's not, the limitation may only be to the extent that the element of the council is not public resources or it's not public platforms.
Okay.
But without that, I think that private persons have a right to choose who they allow on their platforms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so As I was saying, I think the baseline is everybody has a freedom as private persons to make a choice as to where they invest their money or otherwise, except that Article 17 of our Constitution is very clear to say no person shall be discriminated against on the basis of race, color, culture, religion, and all of that. So, generally, in the frame of human rights, no person is expected to be discriminated against, and that is entrenched in the Constitution. Except that, as I was saying, if it's a public service or it's a public resource, or it's in the sense that you can point to discrimination in that sense, then yes. Otherwise, I would reason that people have a choice to choose who they listen to or otherwise. So I guess that those will be the boundaries and the limitations, if anything.
Oh, okay, that's nice. So if I get you right, what legal actions can someone take if they are wrongfully cancelled in
Right.
relation to defamation and legal risk?
Right. Okay. So I think baseline defamation is a completely different conversation. So, for example, if you cancel me and you say that guy is an asshole, well, maybe if there's
In quote, so
cross that,
yeah,
unless it's French allowed in your books,
yes,
right?
please.
So, but the baseline is that if there's basis for which you suggest somebody is something, then that will not amount to defamation. But defamation basically has a root in saying something you know not to be true, and that impugns the reputation of one person in the eye of the ordinary citizen. So if you say something about somebody that reduces his respect or repute in the eyes of ordinary persons, and that which you said is not true, then there is a reasonable basis for defamation. So if the basis for the cancel, for example, is a falsehood, and that you publish that falsehood in a way that um, reduces the repute of the person cancelled, then of course they have a cause of action in defamation. If again, if the basis is discriminatory in the way that they can assert their rights under Article 17, then of course you can have those conversations in human rights. So beyond defamation, where you're saying something you know not to be true, or you're saying something that is false, that brings the repute of the other person down in the eye of ordinary thinking person, or you're discriminating in the way that offends Article 17. I
Okay.
do not perceive there is any other.
So literally, you're trying to look down on the person or downvote the person. Should we put it that way?
Council ultimately has a root in saying that, well, we don't think you're deserving of our attention or our patronage because of something you said or who you are. And I think that in many sense now it relates to, cultural element. A comedian says something and people are offended. Somebody's politics, somebody's sexuality, then offends a certain group of people to say, let's not patronize him in any sense. So yes, in part, it will be looking down, but that does not amount to any legal recourse.
Okay, so Council, on that note, how do we balance to look at, to navigate to look at the pressure and the fairness so far as employers and employees are concerned?
Okay, so when you're dealing with employer-employee, you're then looking at an entirely different scope of law, which is labor laws. Of course, under labor, the rules are set in our labor laws. So can an employer cancel an employee? I do not think so. You can terminate the contract if you think that there is legitimate basis. But let's say politics, yes, we're going through new political, so they will send you to Siberia. They won't sack you, but they'll post you
Straight to asylum.
somewhere you're useless. Um, in many sense, it is not right, but if the basis of that transfer has a root in your contract, and the basis of that transfer is not an upfront on labor law, then the appointing authority or the public service and civil service system has a right to transfer. Would that amount to cancel? I do not think so. Again, unless there is basis in Article 17 where you think it's discrimination, I do not think it would amount to cancel.
If you've made it this far, please kindly subscribe, you like, you comment, and you share for others to see. So we are going on to social media. So lawyer, someone asked me a question and I want to read it out to you. He said, can platforms like Twitter and Facebook be held accountable for counseling someone so far as social media and public opinions are
Yeah,
concerned?
again, that's an interesting question. I mean, those companies are subject to the laws, not exactly the laws of Ghana. And yes, we know that at the point they took Donald Trump off
The
Twitter.
United States president.
Yes.
Yeah.
The basis of that council or otherwise must have a root in their law. So what I would say is that for purposes of those platforms, the countries they exist, there's a liberty for freedom of speech in a way that some of us are now learning, some countries like us are. But even for them, you realize that those platforms had the powers, again, under limited rules of hate speech and some restraining hate speech could curtail things they determine as falsehood. But we know that they are rolling back most of those laws. If, particularly in Ghana, can Facebook, for example, say they've taken somebody off Facebook, I can't see that happen. What I know is that if you report a post, it has abusive, there are posting guidelines. So those community rules then guide what content they allow on the platform.
To put it on the platform.
Yes. So if you put those content on the platform and they have a problem on the platform, then the community rules will guide them whether or not they can take it off or otherwise.
Okay.
But other than that, I cannot fathom taking somebody out because the freedom of expression is baseline, in as much as there's a prohibition for discrimination. Freedom of expression is also guaranteed for everybody, except that expression must not curtail public interest.
It's a hands go, hands come something.
Yes.
Just back and forth stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so I know recently there was this cyber something you wrote on your LinkedIn platform. I know you have a legal background, but you still developed that much interest in IT. And so far as the whole technological evolution is concerned. But then can cyberbullying be also under this form of cancel culture?
Right. Now that's a good
so far as
question.
social media is concerned.
Currently, Ghana has a Cyber Security Act, which basically sort of tries to regulate the cyberspace. Particularly for children, it's a big conversation
for them.
If the nature of bullying is sexual content, then of course that is a crime. So the fact that your girlfriend left you doesn't mean you feel posting picture
for the social
for
media.
the social media. Boys know actually say they want to see.
So if you're a guy out there, if you're a lady out there, and you and your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you had a misunderstanding, kindly note that there are acts which can take you on. So far as the cyberbullying and cancel culture is concerned, say yes, the lawyer. So lawyer, please let's continue.
So yeah, as I was saying, then I think the baseline we all need to know is that the intimacy of persons cannot be published without that's a crime under the Cyber Security Act. And generally, the implementation of the new act gives us a sense to sort of sanitize the environment. But again, we're very careful in saying that people have freedom of expression, except that there are limitations to it for those expressions.
Okay. That's fine. All right. So viewers, as we are doing justice to the topic, cancel culture, we've seen what it is, evolution, and one way or the other things so far as social media is concerned, the employer and employee relation, the legal background. So now we are just going straight to look at the solutions and the future for cancel culture. So let's come back to cancel. This one is a cancel as a lawyer, not the cancel we know. Okay, so
if you cancel me,
that was on the lighter note. So lawyer, how can laws evolve to address the impact of cancel culture?
Right. So I think the framework exists. The framework of discrimination actually does exist. And so baseline, I think everybody, every platform, every body that is intended to cancel should be minded to know that there are baseline laws that prohibit discrimination.
Okay.
If you are discriminated against, then you feel that it offends your right under Article 17. The Constitution gives a right to enforce those rights. If it borders on defamation, as you said, again, there is recourse against defamation. If it's an employer-employee relationship in a way that offends the Labor Act, there is recourse under labor laws.
Okay.
And then finally, as we said, if it's cyberbullying and posting of intimate images, and humiliating other people, the Cybersecurity Act may also give you recourse. So it actually depends on the source and the nature of what the act is. You may have remedies in several laws, but seek legal opinion, understand what your rights are, and then whatever the situations are, exercise your rights under the law.
So you can I don't want to say challenge it, but you can seek redress.
Yes, I think that once you understand the boundaries of your fact and what the law says, you can be guided in terms of what can you do in your specific circumstance.
Okay. So lawyer, the last thing before we go, is there a way to balance accountability without permanent reputational damages to it, so far as counsel culture is concerned?
If I understand the question to say, how do you hold people accountable for what they say without permanently canceling them?
Yes.
I think that baseline, everybody should have the decency to know that yes, you have freedom of expression, but that freedom must have recourse to other people's rights, right?
Sure.
And if we're all good human beings with baseline respect to one another, the baseline of the human rights laws is conditioned on respect. So if we would respect people for their individuality and respect diversity in its sense, then baseline, we can appreciate that people may be different, but we would respect them. If people then offend, for example, if the person is cancelled because they defamed, then of course, then you can have a legal recourse against them in law for defamation or any of the other things that may have led to his cancel. But ultimately, I think cancel is more of an economic punitive right to say that economically we'll make a choice not to patronize you so that you suffer.
As compared to the legality.
Yes, I think it's more of an economic redress by public persons rather than law.
Okay.
So it's more to say that you said something against blacks. Blacks are not happy, so blacks won't buy your thing.
So meaning it has a way of going against your social currency.
Absolutely. So it's a question of society or a certain group of people who either have influence or power or money making a choice to say, because of what you stand for, who you are, or what you say, we're not patronizing you. So I see it more as an economic tool. Yes, there are boundaries in law in discrimination, defamation, contract and things we've spoken about. But generally, I think it's an economic, social, cultural tool used by societies to redress people they think they don't like or has done something against them.
Right. Thank you so much, lawyer. Thank you so much for having you, lawyer.
And again, thank you for doing this, and we really hope that the audience did find the conversation insightful. You can check our socials as well. Our website is sompalaw.com. You'd get educational material. Our LinkedIn is Sompa and Partners. Check it out, and we hope you find it insightful and useful.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother.
All right, so thank you so much for listening to us and watching us, viewers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and on TikTok at The Real Conversation throughout. Thank you so much, and you can reach out to us via our email too. Thank you.